Hello and welcome to the news update for Monday, October 15th, 2018. We have a lot to get into. I figured at the end of the video I want to give my reaction to the first two games of the American League and National League Championship Series going on in baseball, because I'm hoping the Brewers do make it to the World Series. I'll get into that later on, and we're also going to touch on a very sensitive subject, which is about media bias in this video, because it needs to be addressed today, because, in the age of our president, he's just there in Florida right now doing his own thing, and I'm not going to say his name because honestly it'll make the conversation worse and I'll get negative comments. But, media bias is going to be what we're going to talk about today after I make this quick point. And I was talking to Matt Camper just now as I was about to hit the record button. And you're looking at the tweet correctly, folks. Looking at this tweet or email, whatever's going to be on the screen right now. It doesn't matter. It'll be in the editor, but you're looking at it right now and you're seeing this correctly. This was midday track work on the Long Island Railroad. Guess what happened? Temporary westbound platforms at Kew Gardens, Forest Hills, and Woodside in the middle of the day. That's so stupid. Why do you need to do that? In the middle of the day, people are traveling. It's so idiotic. Why? It made me annoyed when I saw this, and I was like, oh boy, we all know who this is. You're looking at her on the screen right now. That's right. It's Elisa Pica, the Executive Vice President of the Long Island Railroad. Ha! And I'm sorry for shouting, but this is what I talk about with media bias, okay? They're not covering stories that impact me, you, my girlfriend, everybody around the local area, okay? I understand this whole New Jersey Transit thing is very important, and in fact, right now, let me see, can I point correctly? There we go. See that card right there? You can click on it, and it will take you to Matt Camper's presentation that he did this weekend about the trains getting canceled on New Jersey Transit. Because I know one of the trains was impacted from... where does LIRR go in New Jersey? I'm just so worked up today. I am so sorry, everyone. Massaquan, that's her station. Yeah, so pretty much there was only one train canceled from Massaquan, but other than that, nothing really impactful on the North Jersey coastline. But I don't want to ramble on about New Jersey. I need to talk about the Long Island Railroad with you guys, because that's how we're starting this off. Because today is just another blatant example of what this woman is causing, alright? It's cause and effect from the Nowakowski administration, alright? Philip Bing, and I'm sorry for saying this, is a weak man. Alright? He has no... And it sounds wrong. I'm sorry, everyone. He has no balls. Alright? If YouTube's gonna say, oh, you violated our terms of services, man up. Man up, everyone. Alright? And I told everybody this, and if I was the president of the Long Island Railroad, first day on the job, after all the board meeting, that public board meeting, you know when I would have done that first week in May? I would have said, we're shaking things up. I don't care if I get bashed by Joe Loader or even the top guy in Albany. I would have said this, and I quote, if you worked and if you were appointed by Patrick Nowakowski, you need to get the hell out of the room or I'm calling security. That's what I would have done. Because right now, we are facing a colossal nightmare on the Long Island Railroad. And again, our media refuses to cover. I just wish the Long Island Railroad would be under audit like New Jersey Transit was. Because we need an audit on the entire Long Island Railroad system. Alright, we do. And see, the numbers don't lie. The numbers don't lie for the on-time performance. Metro North shouldn't even get time to talk at the next committee meeting next week. And I agree with Matt Camper, alright? These stupid Babylon branch flyers, why do we need them? Why? Oh, one train's going to Wanta, one train's going to Merrick. Oh, this train's going to Seaford. You don't need those trains. We need them on the main line. And this is what I think could be useful in the long run. Because Mineola and Hicksville are the busiest stations on the network. What you need to do is, you need more trains going at Mineola or Hicksville. We should be getting more flyers to Hicksville. Why aren't we getting them? We need them more. And I'm going to say this now. When you think about it in the long run, it will benefit customers on the main line. The trains get crowded. Alright? Even off-peak. Like, there should be some off-peak trains going express to Hicksville. Why is there a 122 train from Penn making stops at Jamaica, Freeport, and then Babylon? That doesn't make any sense for an off-peak train. What there needs to be to make up that load is you have one mainline train, skip Woodside, go to Jamaica, and then what you do is there should just be that one train that just, goes to Jamaica and then goes local on the Huntington branch. Have two trains. Have one going to Woodside and then the other going, past Woodside, just stopping at Jamaica and then stopping at New Hyde Park, stopping at Rowan Avenue, Mineola, Carl Place, Westbury, and Hicksville. That should be that train. And if you want to connect with a Huntington train, just do it at Penn or do it at Jamaica. Or, if you really want to do it properly, have people transfer at Jamaica and then make them get on a diesel train at Jamaica. Makes complete sense. Common Basic Railroad 101. Alright, Babylon Branch doesn't need more service. Just doesn't. I've seen the reality. I've been on enough mainline trains this year. Tell everybody this right now. We are in chaos. And I'm going to keep talking about this and other stories as we go along here. Because, literally, with media bias, you know what's going on. Alright? And I'm going to quote Ted Koppel right now and say his name. In the age of Trump, people just have the illusion of just talking about him non-stop on every major media outlet. Yep, that's Ted Koppel. Okay, that was a guy who I still respect to this day. Alright, I'm doing his voice to prove a point. So, believe me when I mean media bias is all around this. And in the rest of this video, we are going to talk about that. And then, if you want to fast forward to the sports, if you got bored, you can fast forward to the end. I'll have it in the description anyway if you want to just fast forward and watch the sports part of the video. Because, this is my only room or safe place where I can talk about it, alright? And, I didn't say worst curse words that George Carlin said. Believe me. George Carlin said, eventually the words are going to come back to haunt you. It should, that comedy bit where he talks about, the words you can't say on TV, well, should be the same for YouTube. Hell is not a bad word. It's not, but, I have random thoughts and it comes out of me. So, very sensitive subject we're going to talk about next besides the railroad. In this video, we are going to talk about an underreported story that was here in Queens that we need to address today, because I'm just distraught and a loss of words for what I read online. And the walk and talk part of the video will be after that, where I discuss Kanye West fighting media bias, and then we'll get to the sport. So the agenda will be Frank Padavin, then Kanye West, and then I'll recap the first two games of the championship series. If you have not heard the sad news from Queens, and once again, this is what I talk about with media bias all the time, my longtime state senator Frank Padavin passed away last Tuesday, October 9th. He was 83 years old, and honestly, one of the most respected persons that you could ever meet or even be represented by, because this man looked out for everybody in my district. So we're going to read what the Daily News talked about. So the word was Senator Padavin died on Tuesday, October 9th. The article doesn't mention it, but he was best known for being one of the legislator's fiercest anti-gambling critics. Passed away, and he passed away peacefully of a heart attack at New York Presbyterian Hospital, surrounded by his two children. Padavin was one of a handful of elected Republicans from New York City, serving in the New York State Senate, represented his district from 1973 all the way to 2010. He left after losing the 2010 election to Democrat Tony Avila. Padavin, an engineer by trade who lived in Belrose, also was a reserve member of the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers for 30 years, rising to the rank of colonel. He grew up in Elmhurst and received an undergraduate degree in electrical engineering from Brooklyn Polytech Institute and a master's in business administration from New York University. Before serving in the Senate, he also worked as an engineer at Westinghouse Electric Corp. And was a deputy commissioner of the New York City Buildings Department. Senate Majority Leader John Flanagan of Suffolk County described Padavin as a man of conviction who worked on behalf of his constituents, was never truly done. Senate Majority Leader John Flanagan also said, I am truly saddened to learn of the passing of former New York State Senator Frank Padavin, an exemplary public servant who represented his Queens constituents with character and integrity for nearly 40 years. While in office, nobody did more to help the city of New York than Frank Padavin. The Queens County Republican Committee, in a tweet, called Padavin a champion of the Republican Party in the New York State Senate and said, "You will be sorely missed. Our condolences extend to the Padavin family." Queens City Councilman Eric Ulrich said in a tweet his fellow Republican was a staunch advocate for his Northeast Queens district and a fighter in the forgotten middle class. Overall, he was an absolute gentleman and raised the bar for public service. Pretty much, he really didn't like gambling. And later on in my grandfather's life, he actually agreed with Frank Padavin. I'm going to be honest, my grandfather, when my parents moved out to Queens, is a little bit of an emotional topic, and I know this story very well. And this is after my grandfather passed away. What happened was, a few months after my grandfather died, and this was especially when my grandfather was in assisted living. First of all, my grandfather passed away in 2011, and the story of it goes, my grandfather was a big fan of, Frank Padavin, because he and him saw eye to eye on the issues. And later on in his life, my grandfather was not a big fan of gambling. He really didn't like gambling either. So he saw eye to eye on Senator Padavin's view on gambling. I have a different opinion of it. I'm not going to discuss it, but it's a little bit of an emotional topic because, my grandfather was represented by him for so long, And I know this for a fact because my parents moved to Queens in 1991, right after they got married. And they moved to Auburndale. I told you the story many times. I used to live in Auburndale. I moved to Fresh Meadows 14 years ago. And I was represented by him as a kid. My parents, when they first moved here, that's who they were represented by. And so was my grandfather when he moved down here to Queens. Well, technically, my grandfather moved to Queens in 1995 after I was born. So, in that sense, I got the information wrong. I apologize. My grandfather was in Brooklyn at the time, and then he moved out to Queens. So, pretty much, it's an emotional thing because, my parents and especially my family have close ties to Frank Padavin. My mom and dad really didn't have a close tie. It was my grandfather who was a big supporter of Frank Padavin. So Frank Padavin was preceded by his wife Joanne Padavin. He is survived by 2 adult children, Scott and Allison. And as I was mentioning earlier, I read this in the Courier, and they did confirm that his children were at his bedside at New York Presbyterian when he passed on last Tuesday. And I can confirm to you that New York One reported that the funeral did take place in Whitestone back on Saturday. So, obviously, just a very emotional topic to discuss, and I'm very annoyed the media didn't cover it. And this is what I talk about in the age of Trump, a well-respected state senator who, once again, earned my family's respect, and especially Vicky Palladino's respect. And I even talked to her about this today. I'm not going to say how I talked to her, but I told her, plain simple, and she's watching, in order to fight the fake media, we have to tell off the bureaucrats in Albany. And we do that by electing her. We avenge... I'm going to say this now. We avenge Frank Padavin's death by putting Vicky Palladino in on November 6th. And I'm urging everybody in District 11, this election now means everything for my district and everything. If Cuomo wins, we need to make sure that Vicky Palladino is properly representing us, not just in my district, but for the entire borough. Frank did the same thing too. Alright? Frank looked out for all of us in Queens. Right? He went all over this borough, not just my district. So, I'll just quickly show you his Wikipedia page. This was him when he was first starting off in the state Senate. And it's just emotional to think that Tony Avila, who I have respect for. I have respect for Tony Avila because me and him do see eye to eye on getting rid of these dumb bike lanes. And, I was just annoyed about the whole... And I was very passionate about the whole primary and how... when you hear Vicky Palladino talk, it feels like you have the energy of her coming from Queens. With, Tony, he's at least from Whitestone. So in that sense, it's about a very important thing. Right, here we go. He was a city councilman. I knew that. Because I'm pretty sure he did represent... Yeah, he did represent me when I was in Auburndale. Now I remember. Because when I moved to Fresh Meadows, I think David Reppin... I don't know if Dave Reppin still represents me. I'm not too sure, because I need to really research my ballot when it comes, but... I'm just going to let everybody know right now that if you are voting on November 6th, there will be John Liu, the Democrat, Vicky Palladino, Republican, let me think. Right, Simon Minchin, Conservative Party, and then it will be Tony Avila. He will still be on the Independence line and the Reform Party. So please just be careful who you are voting for on the ballot on November 6th. If you're voting for Vicky Palladino, please be careful not to bubble in the wrong circle, because you may screw up and then Liu might get an extra vote. So I don't want... I'm sorry for making this personal, but, you know, we need to avenge death of Frank Padavin, because I just can't see John Liu representing us. He's a corrupt Democrat, and I'll get into it in another video later this month, because we need to discuss this. I'm very happy that Nicole Maliotakis tweeted back on Tuesday. Assemblywoman Maliotakis said, "Sorry to hear the passing of former New York State Senator Frank Padavin. He served the people of Queens with distinction, representing the neighborhoods of Queens Village, Flushing, Bayside, Whitestone, Luxton, Little Neck, and more for 37 years. Even my congresswoman tweeted, Grace Ming, who was unopposed, which I'm still angry about that, but she tweeted, sad about the death of former State Senator Frank Padavin. He was a tireless public servant who was a fixture in Queens. He championed important issues and worked with address many neighborhood concerns. Proud to have worked with him while I was in Albany." So as you can see here, Frank was a very bipartisan person. And the problem with John Liu is he's not going to be looking out for us. My concern with him is, and at least with Tony Avila, okay, no big deal. Tony Avila beat Vicky Palladino. I would have accepted it because, as I said, I have respect for Tony. All right, he was a good campaigner when it came to taking on Frank Padavin. I had no problem with him meeting Frank Padavin, but John Liu cannot represent us. He can't. He is not a good person. And again, I'll get into it in another video another time, but even Eric Adams. So as you see here, you know, everything is important here. So I'm urging everybody right now, if you have to put family over everything on November 6th, do it. Because November 6th is the most important day of your life in New York. You need to vote. Bottom line, vote. I know me and my dad are going to be, and I hope you will be going to the poll too. If you're in Senate District number 7, my girlfriend's thankfully in that district. I had convinced her last night she will be re-electing Elaine Phillips, and hopefully she will be working with Vicky Palladino to fix the Long Island Railroad. And hopefully Vicky will get us half-hourly service in Auburndale at least. But until then, we have to put our priorities first. And to the Assemblywoman, Nicole Maliotakis, if you're in Staten Island, if you're in Bay Ridge, please re-elect her on November 6th. Because Nicole Maliotakis, and I'll do it in another video as well, why you need to re-elect Nicole Maliotakis. Because she is actually a very strong advocate of public buses in Staten Island. So I'll get into that another time, why you should vote for Nicole Maliotakis for re-electing her. I'll get into that in another video. But the next topic I'm going to discuss, and I did this on the walk and talk earlier. There's not going to be any proper walk and talk intro. We are now going to discuss Kanye West. A very controversial topic, but I had to discuss it today. So let's go to the properly edited video. And the last segment will be recapping the American League and National League Championship Series. Alright, so this week, even though it's raining, we're still doing the walk and talk. I apologize if the quality sucks, but it's gray, it's cloudy, but I don't care. So I'm going to try to make this as quick as possible. So if you didn't see last Thursday, President Trump met with, honestly, somebody who I had a lot of respect for back in the day, and that was Kanye West. But lately, Kanye is earning my respect again. Because I watched that whole 20-minute meeting that he had with the president, along with NFL Hall of Famer Jim Brown, who honestly is one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time. But I'm going to be honest with everybody. When I saw that video on YouTube of Kanye West meeting with the president, I was saying to myself that, like, this is what civility is about. Kanye's actually talking about jobs. And this is what the president did
when he first started the campaign 3 years ago. Now, granted, again, I have a love-hate thing with Trump. Sometimes I'll like him, the next day I'll hate him. But lately, I'm loving Kanye West more. Now, I know it may sound negative. I don't care at this point. You guys gotta understand one thing. Is that Kanye is trying to go against media bias, alright? Same with Candace Owens. I mean, don't get me wrong. If she was the vice president and she was on the ticket with Kanye, do you know how powerful they would be? They would be a wrecking crew to the liberals. They would be. And, you know, if Kanye's going to go on this conservative platform, I would support him. I definitely would. Because he has the same nationalist viewpoint that the current president has. Except that Kanye was actually talking about education. Now, granted, he quickly talked about his private school shenanigans. They are a little bit of shenanigans. I find them crazy. I'm not going to get into it in this video. But Kanye needs to see eye and eye with Senator Cory Booker on special ed reform. Because that's one thing I agree with the senator from New Jersey on, is that we do need special ed reform. It's not an easy thing to do, but I want to see it happen in my lifetime. No question that it should happen in my lifetime. But the point I'm trying to make is that Kanye West is fighting media bias. Alright? That's what the mainstream media is. They're targeting our way of life. And that little phony reporter, Brian Stelter, from CNN, was saying, oh, 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 oh. Hang on, there's dogs here. They shouldn't even be out in the rain. But I was just going to say, like, oh, President Trump, he's having too many meetings. Yeah, well, at least he's talking to the non-biased media, which Fox News is another topic I could cover for another time. But the point is, Kanye is looking out for our interest, all right? And don't listen to CNN, don't listen to MSNBC, because they are brainwashing you. They are brainwashing you. And I'll quickly mention, this weekend, Kanye was on Periscope. Kanye was talking about creative thought. He talks about this all the time. So, I don't care if I get bashed for supporting Kanye West at this point. He's having an open dialogue. And that's what we need nowadays. Because in the age of President Trump, we are fighting a battle against media bias. And I'm going to give out people that are joining us. We have Mark Dice. We have Michael Savage. We have, who else am I thinking of? Right, Kanye's part of it too. Right, Mike Gallagher from the Salem Radio Network. He's supporting this fight against media bias. That, you know, the liberals are just not going to talk about the realities going around us. Alright? And one last thing, I'll quickly mention the Saudis here. The media really needs to start paying attention to the Saudi Arabia deal. Because, I'm going to do a special thing on my wrestling page about, OWN about, you know, what's going to happen with, what is it? Right, Saudi Arabia and how they may cancel that Crown Jewel pay-per-view. Well, on the way here, I was listening to the economic report, and Saudi Arabia wants to have a trade war with us. The media is not going to talk about it because, again, they're too busy trying to stop him. But we have a big fight with the Saudis coming up. The Saudis want to beat us in the oil trade. Today, our oil prices are above $70. It hasn't happened in a while. So if Kanye is going to support the fight against media bias, that's part of it too. Because right now, I'm going to say this, we're in a predicament where we're facing scrutiny from the Saudi Arabians. And I'm not going to get into it. But the economic side, the economic impact of what Saudi Arabia is doing right now, you all need to keep an eye on it. Kanye West, you need to keep an eye on it. I know he's in Africa right now, but he needs to keep an eye on it because it's going to impact the American economy in a huge way. we're talking big implications. Our gas prices will go up, which again, I still want people taking mass transit. But, you know, we get into a trade war, you know, Saudi Arabia eventually will have to pay the price. They've been ripping us off for decades, but that's a whole different story. So, we're keeping this fight against media bias, alright? Even if it's not political, I'm still going to cover stories that impact my local area. Alright? I'm still going to. And hopefully Kanye, what he mentioned about Chicago, hopefully Kanye will talk about what's going on in Chicago. Hopefully he should, because that's where he's from. I know how people say it's Chirac because of all the violence. Well, Kanye, you need to keep talking about what's going on in your old hometown. Because I'm doing the fight here in New York City, my borough, Queens. Matt Camper, he's keeping the fight out in Long Island. You know, we're gonna make sure in the age of Trump that we cover the real news. Because if we don't, we're all in big trouble. So that's going to end this week's Walk and Talk. Once again to Kanye, if you're going to keep preaching to the choir about conservative economics, I'm with you 100%.
Lastly, in this video, we're going to recap the first two games of the American League and National League Championship Series in baseball. So first up, we're going to discuss the American League first and then the National League. So game one, the Astros won at Fenway 7-2. So what happened in this game was Verlander started. He pitched really well. He only gave up 2 runs. Joe Kelly only pitched 1 inning, but he had to leave the game due to injury. So we recap the scoring course from the game. So what happened was, second inning, George Springer singled to left field. Kevin Correa scored and Monologue scored on that play. So they were able to get 2 RBIs off Springer's single to the left field. And the Red Sox were able to get 2 runs back in the 5th inning as Mitch Moreland walked on a full count. Pierce scored, and the bases were loaded. So yeah, that's what happened. And then Benintendi was at the plate, and Verlander threw a wild pitch. Jackie Bradley Jr. scored from third base, and that's where the game ended up tied at 2. But once the 6th inning came, Carlos Correa hit an RBI single. And in the 9th inning, the game was sealed up on a Josh Reddick home run. That's what pretty much sealed up this game. Because what happened was, in the 6th inning, Houston had a... You do the math. To the game up. Right. Houston had a 3-2 lead. And then the 4 runs came because pretty much it was a crazy inning. It really was. When you think about it, Yuri Gurriel also sealed the game. So that 9th inning helped the Astros in a huge way in that game. So now we go to game 2 of the series, which happened last night. As the Red Sox pretty much had control of the entire game. Garrett Cole did not look good last night. The Red Sox were able to take control right off the gate because first inning, Benintendi hit an RBI single. Rafael Devers hit an RBI single, and they were able to get 2 runs in that inning. Houston tried coming back. They tied the game on an RBI double from George Springer. Carlos Correa scored. Monologue scored from right. So that meant the 2 RBIs came off that play. Marwin Gonzalez hit a home run. Well, the problem was the Garrett Cole didn't look so good. Houston bullpen collapsed. Astros tried coming back, but it just wasn't enough. They tried coming back. They tried their best, but they just couldn't because the Red Sox got 2 extra runs in the 7th and the 8th inning. So that's why we're tied at 1 right now in this series. Now we'll go to LA taking on the Brewers. And a pretty exciting game. Milwaukee had a commanding lead. But what happened was the Dodgers struck first. Manny Machado homered on a 2-0 count from Woodruff. Woodruff actually hit a home run of his own. Perez hit a sac fly, and that's why the Brewers took a 2-1 lead. And pretty much Brewers were in control for the majority of the game, and then look what happened. Dodgers tried coming back. And look what happened. The Brewers were able to hold on. And now you go to this game right here, which the Brewers had, and I was watching this game very closely on Saturday when I was at a restaurant with my parents before I went to see Gilbert Gottfried. And the surprising thing about this game was the Brewers were in control again, and this is what I don't understand. The Brewers look like they're the commanding team, and yet they can't keep leads. And what happened was the Dodgers had the bases loaded in the 7th inning, and they were able to get back 2 runs. 2 runs! Right, and then Justin Turner had that big home run in the 8th inning, but the 7th inning was a killer for the Brewers, because if you look at the numbers in the 7th inning, LA was able to get back 2 runs. 2 runs, okay? Milwaukee had 3 runs, right? They had a 3-1 lead, and that's where the 2 runs came from. And the 2 other runs that came for the Dodgers were from Justin Turner. So, tonight, I'll quickly mention the game tonight. We have Janjin for the Brewers taking on Walker Buehler, so it should be a fun game at Dodger Stadium tonight. And let me confirm the pitchers for tomorrow. I apologize about that, everyone. I will quickly try to wrap up this video right now because my parents want me to come downstairs. Okay, right now we got the matchup at Minute Maid Park tomorrow. So Nathan Eovaldi will take on Dallas Keuchel. So I'll give my final thoughts on the rest of the series in just a second. This is how I think the rest of the series will play out. I believe that when you look at both teams right now, it could go 6 or 7 games. And most likely, what I'm going to do here is, whenever these series wrap up, I will recap both series and give my thoughts going into the World Series in another video. But worst comes to worst, we'll know who wins the National League and the American League pennants sometime this week. Most likely on Saturday, we will know for sure. And then, of course, the World Series starting on Tuesday. So that's going to wrap it up. Tuesday next week. So that's going to wrap up this video. Thank you all for watching. I know it went on very long, but there was a lot to talk about today. And I'm glad I was able to talk to you all about what needed to be accomplished. So that's it. Thank you for watching. Until the next one, please take care.